Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. Let's go inside the test kitchen. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 263 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. This week's show, we're going to do a healthy round of weekly reviews. That's where we talk about books that are either new, maybe they're old, but we're going to talk about them there. Over in the news section, I am going to do part 3 of my C2E2 2023 recap. By the time I'm done recapping all of C2E2 from this year, it'll be time for the next one. So we will cover part 3 in the news this time around, but we will kick it off first with our weekly reviews. And the first one I'm bringing to the table here, it's a much anticipated one from this creative team. I am talking about The Great British Bump Off, issue number 1. An Agatha Christie-style murder mystery set in the world of English competitive baking from Giant Days John Allison and Max Sarin. When she enters her country's most beloved baking competition, Shauna Wickle's goal is to delight the judges, charm the nation, and make a few friends along the way. But when a fellow contestant is poisoned, it falls to her to apprehend the culprit while avoiding premature elimination from the UK bakery tent and being the poisoner's next victim. This comic is done by John Allison, Max Sarin, Sammy Boras, and Jim Campbell. I'm a huge fan of Giant Days, so whenever John Allison comes up with something, it is always on my pull list. And then I see Max Sarin, who's done worked alongside John Allison for creating Giant Days and doing the awesome art there. So this is a mini series. This is diving into a topic that I am not that familiar with. You got the Great British Bake Off, a very popular kind of reality competition series. I got a good friend that is big time into that, and recently I did a little research on the project, and then coincidentally this issue kind of came out, and I'm like, well, that's great. Now I'm a little familiar. I watched a little bit of some of the episodes, get the feel of it. Now this is taking the always quirkiness of world building and character speak of John Allison's characters and putting that through a competition series in a comic book. You open up in here, and I should mention, and what's funny is that in the opening credits, they have listed for the Blood Red Velvet Cake is a list of all the creators and the cover artists. And then they have a topic for the cream filling, which is talking about the publisher, the editor, the designer. So right from the get-go, they just have a lot of fun opening credit information that's just centered around baking. And we get a whole right away. We jump into, we get all of our contestants. We're following our main character, Shauna, as she's been kind of waiting for this moment, jumping into this competition. We see, a lot of the people kind of bumping heads together and all these different personalities. But very quick, do we run into this, the whole idea for this series is the fact that somebody gets poisoned, and now there's a whole mystery. And for some reason, the Shauna character, is going to take it to herself to solve this mystery, because they're kind of fighting the time on whether or not they're just going to shut this whole thing down. But she promises everybody that she can solve this while also jumping into the baking competition. But yeah, there's a lot of fun here. The dialogue that you would normally get from like Giant Days and Steeple, just to name a couple of the other John Allison things. All this humor is it's very recognizable. The tone and all these characters I understand are new. He does like to kind of connect all of his worlds from his web comics, which I'm still reading all of the original stuff from. So sometimes he likes to pluck some characters in and kind of reintroduce them or reinvent them. So I'll be curious to see if any of these have existed since he's been doing web comics for the last, I think, 10 or probably 20 years or so. But yeah, so this is fun. You don't need to know anything about competition reality baking show to get it. It's definitely something very quirky for a comic book to kind of experience it that way. You got some fun little hosts, you got a fun little cat in here. Just add some extra, just like bizarre off the wall humor. But then when it's just kind of in contrast to that, there's a murder mystery happening too. It just makes it all the crazier is that they're still just trying to basically make cakes and compete against each other. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. This is a 4-issue miniseries out of Dark Horse. Um, yeah, it's there's nothing like it. I don't think this is definitely something very original when it comes to comic books. So big fan of it. Can't wait to read the other three. This is the Great British Bump Off, issue number 104. All right, Kirby.
I checked out 3 trade paperback run of Dracula, the Company of Monsters. This is done by, let's see, I know Kurt Busiek's in here. Come on. They got Ross Ritchie, Matt Gagan, Adam Fortier, Wes Harris. Where are the... Oh, they don't have it. Got Busiek, Gregory, and Godlewski. A powerful predatory corporation acquires a valuable asset, Dracula. They think they own him, but no one can own the son of the dragon. There's a monster in their midst that puts Hannibal Lecter to shame, and he plans to gain his freedom in blood. It's Bloodsucker versus Bloodsuckers. As Eisner Award winner Kurt Busiek brings an incredibly modern spin to the Dracula mythos. Joining Busiek is award-winning author Daryl Gregory and rising star artist Scott Godlewski. This was a fun twist on Dracula. It plays right off all the other mythos, and basically Dracula was supposed to have been killed off at one certain point, but instead his skeleton gets encased in honey, and they keep him like basically in a honey coffin until this family, this rich family that's got tons of big corporations, are spending all this time searching for this for Dracula and for all the books and spell books and all these other things that pertain to his original resurrection as a vampire. They learn the spell that Dracula originally used. They learn things they can use to protect themselves against Dracula. And they basically want to bring him back to life and use him to take over other corporations. And while they're doing this, they're just burning money like crazy, trying to travel around, find all this, that they got all their security and all that they got to pay for. So there's thousands upon thousands of people getting laid off from all their other corporations, and the companies trying to figure out what's going on. There's also companies they're trying to merger over and take over their company. And while the main thing is the son, well, his father, he didn't know what his father was doing, but apparently his father is the one that helped encase Dracula back in the day in the honey preservation system. So this kid's just finding out that his father is really old and has more to him than he ever knew about, but he never really got to know his father. His mother's running the company, she's in a wheelchair and all this stuff, but his uncle's the one that's obsessed with trying to find all this stuff. And the son has spent his time learning all this knowledge to be able to read all different text and all that stuff. So that's why his uncle's using him to help resurrect Dracula. And it's a unique, fun way that they do everything and bring him back. And then you get the parts where they're trying to get Dracula to do things for them. Dracula wants to pay them back for just being the type of people they are. You find out a different side of Dracula, one that I like. It makes kind of explains more about all the different religious sects and stuff back in the day of Vlad and all that, and why he went the way he did, and it touches on his brothers and all that, the family history of Vlad. And it was really well done, but it was a nice quick read, modern day, bringing Dracula into the modern age, and just a fun twist on it. And I'm kind of curious if this ever went any further, because they could easily have turned this into some other books also, but I'll have to research that myself. And I like that. I didn't even know Busiak had a part of it when Shelley bought it and stuff. So he did a good job on this one. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's kind of giving me vibes. It's like the Jurassic Park with a Dracula, where it's just kind of encased, and they
Yeah, they had other preservations too that were all based on that whole honey preservation type system. So, and then of course they had to use thousands of gallons of blood to bring him back, because he was basically a skeleton. So, but yeah, there's unique twist to it.
it looks like there might be 3 trade paperbacks of this.
That's what these are.
Oh, they are. Okay, I thought it was 1 through 3, as in like a issue set. So
No, I had all 3 volumes. Shelley picked them up, and
yeah,
she's
that
like, check it out. You might like it. And yeah, I really liked it.
yeah, because it looks like it did 12 issues total. Then
Yep, that makes sense. 4 a piece, because they were very quick reads. So
cool. All right, let's jump over to Jim. What you got for us?
My first pick is something called Harley Quinn and the Joker, Sound of Mind. This is not a comic book. This is a podcast. It was exclusive on Spotify. Warner Brothers Studios and Spotify Studios put this together. It was created by Eli Horowitz and produced by Realm in association with Blue Ribbon Content. And it starred Christina Ricci, Billy Magnuson, and Justin Hartley. So a pretty well-known, well-established cast. The premise is Christina Ricci is Harleen Quinzel. She is brand new at her job as a recent graduate at Arkham Asylum. And she is all full of ideas on treating all this new breed of psychotic patients that are coming through, these weird criminals who fight, go around in the city in costumes and do weird stuff, not, the normal psychiatric patients that they would normally get. And she has this theory that these new patients are all tied with the recent appearance of a vigilante in the city called the Batman. So her boss, however, has this factory mentality of basically treat them and street them, follow the drug regimen, get them so that they can stand before the board, and then kick them out the door. That's what he wants them to do with all these patients. Well, so, and in the meantime, she has also got another story going on in which her father is suffering from cancer and is not able to get the treatment he needs because they will not treat him until she can pay for the treatment. And as a newly graduated, working for a public entity psychiatrist, she is not making lots of money yet. So she can't really take care of this. And her father got cancer working in a local chemical factory. As it turns out, we see one of her days at work where the staff meets and they're discussing the patients that just came in, who's going to take the new ones, and there is a prominent new patient called Patient J. And she goes, "You don't mean the Joker?" And her boss says, "No, no, no, we do not use those names. Since we don't know what his real name is, we will always refer to him as Patient J." But she, however, does not have enough seniority, does not have enough experience to deal with this patient. So he's given to another psychiatrist to deal with. And she goes on about her day, and she ends up treating a character that we all know as the ventriloquist. And we get to see, throughout the series, her dealing with him. Eventually, her coworker, Bob, who was assigned to Patient J, has to take some time off work to regain his own mental balance because his dealings with Patient J have really unsettled him and set him off the deep end, and he is no longer able to work or treat patients. In a moment between her boss and a staff meeting, she goes, "So, can I do it now?" And basically her boss says, "No, you still don't have enough experience to deal with this kind of patient." So she goes, "Oh, so I guess that means you're going to." And her boss kind of hesitates. Well, no, I think maybe you should take this patient. So that's how, Harleen Quinzel and Patient J finally get to meet. She has to go through this extreme security. And then we get to the twist on the traditional story. She is not the one who is twisted by the Joker, but she uses the Joker for her own ends and says, "If I teach you how to get out of here and do what you need to do so you're free, will you provide me with the money that I can pay for my father's treatment?" So she coaches Patient J on what he needs to say and the pills he needs to take and everything so that he can face the board and get out. And he does. And he gets out. And he does, instead of a bank robbery, he goes to the mall and crashes into it with a school bus full of kids and robs a jewelry store so that she can have the funds to treat her father. In the meantime, Bruce Wayne gets involved and he wants to know what's going on at Arkham and how he can help and how he can do this. And Harleen Quinzel meets with Bruce Wayne and is put in charge of a project to study this current run of weird criminals that are coming through the hospital with his patronage. Eventually, she is tortured by guilt and has to go to Bruce Wayne and confess what she's done and that she is the one that let Patient J, the Joker, out of Arkham. And she's feel guilty because Patient J used a bus full of kids to commit his crime. Bruce Wayne decides that he can forgive her and puts her back in charge of the project. And but she has to help Commissioner Gordon and the Batman capture Patient J again. And it's at this point the story turns and becomes more of the traditional, whereas Harleen now falls for the Joker instead of using the Joker for her own ends. And it ends up with her once again leaving her job and becoming, basically, they don't use the name, but she basically at that point becomes Harley Quinn and goes off and becomes the Joker's sidekick at that point. It was just a short 7 episodes, 15 to 20 minutes each. I listened to it in a couple of days, so it was fun to listen to while I was working out at the gym, so it was a great story, interesting, well produced, and with the actors doing the story, it was great. I had to search for the credits because the voice triggered me. I could recognize the voice, but I couldn't quite place it. Her boss, the director of the Arkham Asylum, was Stephen Root, and
Nice.
well-known actor and well-known voice. So, and it's like I knew that voice, but I just couldn't place it. So that kind of thing. So that was also a good one there. So there's a few other voices you recognize if you listen to the whole thing. It was, like I said, well done podcast.
Is that just on
If you're a
Spotify
Spotify,
for?
it is Spotify exclusive, yes.
Okay. And
So
it's
if
not
you
part
use
of
that
like,
for anything,
and it's not part of a
I
subscription
recommend
type
it.
of thing. It's just you log in and you're good.
Nope, I do not pay for Spotify, so it's just there.
All right.
Did
Yeah.
anything about a season 2 or anything, or is it just going to be just those 7?
Not that I've heard of yet. It's kind of set right now that it basically goes to the traditional Joker Harley relationship. So I don't know that they would necessarily have more stories to tell other than basically it goes into the normal stuff. There's not a twist to follow up again unless somebody comes up with another twist.
Cool. Yeah, I might be curious to check that out, especially with the Christina Ricci attached. That's what kind of caught me off guard. I didn't hear about that at all.
Billy Magnuson was good as a Joker too.
Cool. All right. I will jump into my next title here, and I forgot to look it up for like a YouTube review to see if somebody says the title correctly, but I'm going to say it how I think it sounds and what it looks like. But I am talking about the giant Kokju. The despicable Deadpool team reunites to give the world the giant monster attack story that movies and TV are too squeamish to show you. This is a tale of woe about a monster with physical needs. It needs a restroom. It needs food too. And most unfortunately, it needs sexual satisfaction. All right. Or satisfaction. What did I say? Satisfaction. Satisfaction. The only thing standing in its way are the men and women of science. We're proudly flying the M rating for violence, mild gore, sexual situations, nudity, dudity, turds, comedy, drama, and some very tasteful swearing. This comic is done by Jerry Duggan, Scott Koblish, Hi-Fi, and Joe Sabino. All right, this is a crazy book. I saw the title, big giant monsters, you're kind of your Power Rangers, your Godzilla, you get best of both worlds, that kind of thing. Normally this might be something be like, all right, it looks cool, but not for me. But then I see it's the Despicable Deadpool creative team, and I see it's a 3-issue limited series. So I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to jump into this. You set up the story with in San Francisco, with your typical like monster attack right away, and you see everybody kind of reacting to this monster. It's coming out of the water. Everyone's freaking out, and it's just a big action, like a serious action type scene. And then it gets to the awesome splash page. There's several things I don't want to show, so I have to monitor what I'm showing here. But here's a pretty awesome opening splash page of our creature from the cover. You just see some awesome details there, and just the colors are beautiful. It just looks awesome, just with the water, dripping down, and the drool, and the swinging tongue, and there's just a lot of craziness going on. This one I will show because I think it's a sell for the book. The rest I'm going to tread lightly for people to check out. But you got this monster coming up out of the ocean, and everyone's freaking out, and you're kind of wondering, all right, what's going to be the first attack here? Is this thing going to start breathing fire? Is it going to start clawing, knocking things over, swinging its tail? Shooting lasers out of its eyes. Like, what is this thing going to do? Well, emphasis on do as in duty, because we get a giant attack from behind, if you will, from this giant cockju, as they call it. Basically, it needed to go to the bathroom, and it had a very acidy type of diarrhea thing happening. And from here on out, the book just gets insane. Uh, We do see it trying to clean itself up as it's kind of doing, kind of rubbing its behind across the street in the city. Um, and yeah, and I'll leave it at that because there is a lot more shocking things that happen throughout this book. It gets real crazy when you just see how like the death and the action and this creative team is just perfect for what's happening here. There's something about halfway to maybe quarter of the way or third of the way through um, that a splash page that I will not show. It's not appropriate to show here. Um, but yeah, it's crazy. It's funny. It's hilarious. Action packed, over the top, silly. I mean, it lives up to the hype of the not only the title, but then just with the premise and then that's this creative team. So if you're into giant kaiju type monsters and big, robot defense team attacks and destruction and like a disaster type movie stuff, this is for you. And by the way, you have to have a good sense of humor because there's a lot of you know silly potty mouth vulgar looking things that are happening in this book, very crude. So yeah, this was not a letdown at all. This is what I think is called the giant cockchew. Check it out, number one of three.
Yeah, just that name alone.
One cup 2 months ago, going back in the previews, I remember David was here for that episode, and I think it was probably when we had Troy on, I think, and we were talking about it, and I was just reading it. I'm like, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and I'm just like, this seems kind of weird, and then I just kind of skipped over it, and then I was reading the description, and then David had called it out. I was just like, yeah, I think it's supposed to be that. So, all right.
Now, is that a turn of phrase just for this book, or is that something that is actually used for that type of story in Japanese
So
anime or?
Kaiju is the normal, isn't it?
yeah,
I know
kaiju.
kaiju is just a big monster, but for this type of big monster, is that something that Japanese actually call it?
I'll say this: the page I didn't want to show will lives up to the name of this book.
A
I didn't say
little bit
anything.
of Batwang.
I just said the title. I didn't say anything. It's yeah, this book's nuts.
And if a giant lizard gets a certain member cut off, does it regrow?
Well, issue 2 is going to be right around the corner, so we'll have to find out. Look at here. How about this? I didn't even look at the back until right now. I probably did when I scanned the barcode. It is censored image, and speaking of image, it's published by Image, and they censored it by putting the Image logo on the back of the page. So
Uh,
And if that censor bar is to scale,
yeah, it's you're getting what you pay for. Let's just say that.
all right.
Let's get away from this.
We all checked out Pop's Chocolate Shop of Horrors. The burgers are to die for. Pop Tate is the glue holding Riverdale together, whether everyone realizes it or not. His chocolate shop is the beating heart of the city, where everyone can stop in for a delicious bite and some safe haven, even the worst sorts, and not just the run-of-the-mill rapscallions who recently broke the jukebox. When a young Riverdale couple, Nick St. Clair and Sherry Thyme, attempts to dine and dash on a humble small business owner, they quickly discover the fryer grease isn't the only heart-stopping thing about the chocolate shop. From tales of mystery meat to the unnatural visitors that dine late at night, this anthology tells stories about the horrors that happen at Riverdale's beloved malt shop and how Pop Tate is at the center of it all. The most powerful figure in Riverdale, providing asylum to all sorts of terrors and underhanded villainy. This was a lot of fun, as all the horror stories have been so far. I kind of thought we were going to get a play on
Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop of Horrors from the covers, but it didn't go quite that route. But it was a fun little twist on what happens late at night at the Pop's chocolate shop when the windows go black, but yet there's cars out in the parking lot, and you know something's going on inside. But yeah, our little pair of teens just got themselves in a little bit of trouble trying to dine and dash, and they got a little extra work to help pay off their tabs. So I'll let you guys say some things about it, but this was a blast. I love this one.
Yeah, they keep doing. They jumped into this trend a while back here, where they launched Archie Horror with your Afterlife of Archie, and then your Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, jumping into some Jughead the Hunger and Vampironica. And all of those series have had multiple issues in different volumes, and they've kind of switched the things up with kind of leading with the Chilling Adventures Presents, and they've just been doing these almost monthly one shots, if not every single month. They've had a long stretch of doing this and just kind of focusing on a certain character or story. We've talked about some of them here, and yeah, this one, I don't know, they've all just been really great, and I'm sure it's going to be worth it for a collected edition someday that they'll probably put all of these tales in there. And but yeah, this is good. This one doesn't necessarily need to focus on any of the other like Riverdale characters. We got Pop, obviously, our namesake of the book here, but it's just kind of it's just a good recipe to tell little horror stories. And what's great about this is that it's actually something I'm watching right after we're done recording it. And but at the current week we're recording, Riverdale just had a brand new episode for season 7. I think it's the 4th episode. It's maybe the 5th episode. But it is very new viewer friendly, because it is basically like a Tales from the Crypt type of thing with the Riverdale characters, and they just go full on horror within this Riverdale episode. You don't have to really see anything that's been going on in the last 7 seasons. But these kind of books have kind of are a good representation of that, and I was excited to also see that pop up on television. But yeah, this is another win, I think. Jim, you read this as well?
I did. There are like 3 stories in here, and of them, I mean, I enjoyed all of them, but I particularly like the Betty Cooper one, which is titled Soylent Teen. If anybody is familiar with the old movie Soylent Green, you can anticipate where this is going. And it is a take on, I don't even know if this is still a thing, but years ago there was a thing called gourmet clubs, where it was a secret moving dining room where it was like featured each time was like a selection of endangered animals were put on the menu for these high paying customers. So it was like all secret and where it had happened and who was going to be there and all this. So this is kind of like what's happening at Pops. They turn this like greasy spoon, teen dive into this high-end, secret gourmet where the select choice of menu presentation is the missing teens from Riverdale.
Yeah, I didn't know about that, but yeah, that's a crazy thing.
There was a movie. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say I'd like to know what happens to the health inspector every year when he comes to Pops and goes through the walk-in pool.
Yeah, I don't know. People keep leaving that job position. We keep having to hire a new one every year. I don't know.
But they get their reports in at least.
But yeah,
there was a Matthew Broderick movie years ago called The Freshman, where he was a freshman in college and he got a job working for a mafia type guy who was actually played by Marlon Brando. And his job was just to run errands for him, and he ended up having to deliver a Komodo dragon to one of these gourmet club things. It was, one crazy hijinks movie, but that was the premise of the movie there.
I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, and then like these issues have been doing, they've been using the last couple pages of each book where they kind of do a little behind the scenes and talking about how they approach this and some of these creators, and a lot of them have contributed to other little short stories that Archie has done, and then they end up pitching different books and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a good model that they got going on. And as you flip through the pages, the one that came out this week was The Cult of the Wilkin Boy, just taking like a deep cut Archie character. And right across from it is Little Jinx. Jinx and Curse Life is something that'll be coming up in May. So yeah, they've just been doing all these things that I can guarantee you whenever there's a collection, even though I have all the single ones, I'll probably double dip, and because it'd be nice just to have a giant book of all of these short stories. So. Cool.
I'm going to have to look for those two.
Say that again?
Because I did not order them ahead. I'm going to have to look for those two titles because I did not order them ahead.
Yeah, the Wilkins Boy was just in the last catalog. I know that.
But yeah, cool. I think that should do it. And remind me who Kirby had that one, right, on your list?
Yep.
So I remember the order here. All right, we'll jump over to Jim then. What you got?
Okay, I have a new book from Image Comics called Dead Romans. This is by Fred Kennedy and Nick Marinkovich. And this is actually historical fiction. There are real historical characters around a real historical event that happened, like 1,700 years ago, something like that, about when 3 Roman legions disappeared in the Teutonic forests, the Teutoburg forests of Germany, and kind of kept the German tribes, the Teuton tribes, from being Romanized any more than they ever had been, and kept Germany, the German region, from being another province of Rome, basically. And the main character in this book is Arminius, who was from the leader of a tribe that was very closely allied with the Romans at the time. So that when he decided to side with the other Germanic tribes, it was basically an act of treason against Rome. So, like I said, this is just the opening chapter of this historical fiction, which depicts, the initial battles and a romance between him and a slave, and who serves the Legion commander of the area, and what's going on there. So, and it's really good art. The battle scenes are done really well. They don't get overly graphic, but you see a lot of action and a lot of, death occurring without being too gruesome, So it is appropriate for, I would say, probably starting around 10 years old, for anybody who is a kid who is interested in history. It's not, I don't imagine it's going to be overly strict in historical accuracy, but it will give you the flavor. It does seem like a Roman legion. And I got that feel. I read other books that dealt with the Roman history, and it feels true. So I'm looking forward to reading the series.
And then just so you know, you broke up a little bit just at the very end there, but otherwise you've been pretty good.
Okay.
So just an FYI.
Okay.
But yep.
Anything I should go over again, or you got
I
it?
think it was good because it was literally just like the last
Okay.
5 seconds when you just wrapped it up there. But
Gotcha.
right now it seems like you're good. So just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. All right. We'll jump over to my next one here. This one here, I haven't read the Guardians of the Galaxy for a while. I was have an almost complete collection dating back to the very beginning. Got to a certain point a couple years ago where I'm like, okay, I don't need every one. Wasn't really, digging what was happening, but a brand new number one came out, and there's a brand new movie that's also coming out. So I figured, hey, what a great time to jump back in with Guardians of the Galaxy number one. Who are the Guardians of the Galaxy? 1 year ago, the Guardians of the Galaxy were destroyed, their optimistic future shattered by the betrayal of one of their own. Now they ride the space lanes of a lawless corner of the galaxy, trying to outrun their tragedy. Can they rediscover their heroism and humanity on the bleakest frontier? Can they forgive the failures of their past, or will they fade into the dark, eternally unforgiven? This comic is done by Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing, Kev Walker, Matt Hollingsworth, and VC's Corey Petit. Okay, brand new Guardians title. You got a pretty cool cover here to open it up. You've got a Cad Bane looking Star Lord mask wearing dude. Uh, this issue is very much a Western. I almost thought it was the animated movie Rango at first, because we do see this kind of creature out in the desert when we open up here. But yeah, this whole issue is a pretty interesting Western. It's like it's easy to compare it to Firefly in that sense of, you're mixing your space and your westerns, but really this is I think a very attractive title to anybody who is a fan of Firefly. You get our opening character kind of riding in on this crazy space looking thing here. Um, but yeah, you kind of come into this town like, oh, look at even the title page here, just beautiful setting. So it really set the tone here. So we have our character, which by the way is Star Lord. It's not a big mystery, but it was one of those things kind of wondering if it was somebody portraying him. But for the sake of me talking about this interview, it is Star Lord coming in here. We're seeing him look a little different. He's kind of coming in as this outlaw character into this little western town. I'm just looking at the cover, make sure I'll talk about certain characters. We do have Gamora coming in as well. Basically, you have all of our main characters that are kind of put in different spots within this little western town, and uh, very much like a Firefly mission, where a lot of the characters are kind of like out there doing their own thing, and everyone's kind of planted in, part of this major plan that they're doing. They do a really good job of just setting up all of our characters, not really knowing if they're working together, what they're here for. But basically, this town is being attacked. And while they are also the outlaws, they're kind of coming in saying, like, well, we're here to save you anyways. Um, just looking at what I don't want to say. I'll say this. One of the Guardians members that we would know, a longtime Guardians of the Galaxy member, is basically the focal point of why they're here in this little town. And it was quite a shock, quite a surprise. It's fun to kind of see the team based on the cover. We see Nebula, we see Drax in the back, we see Gamora. Um, but yeah, there's a couple other characters outside of what we've seen in the movies. Guardians has had a rotating cast for many years now, many decades, but it was such a fun read to kind of find out like why are they here and what is their threat. And the minute when you actually turn around and realize you turn the page and find out the big threat of this issue is some crazy splash page action. And this is something that was just going to be like, all right, I just pre-ordered issue number one. I didn't pre-order the other ones because I figured I'll just give it the one issue test. But and maybe check out the rest through Marvel Unlimited when they get dropped in there. But yeah, I think I might have to seek out issue number two when it comes out because yeah, it had a pretty interesting hook to get into this new era of the Guardians. But yeah, there's a lot of fun. Like I said, if you like westerns, this is a good vibe for you. If you like Firefly, I would highly suggest jumping into this. Um, Very disconnected of the greater Marvel universe, so there's not a lot of knowledge you need, even as far as the Guardians team in general. I think this serves as a pretty interesting first space western issue. That is Guardians of the Galaxy #1, and I should mention 2023. That it's that #1.
Yeah. I'm going through volume 2 and volume 3 or something like that right now. But yeah, I think I ordered that, but I'm not sure because I was going back and forth on it, but I'm pretty sure I did. So
Pretty
looking
strong
forward
first
to
issue.
All right, I got X-Men Unforgiven #1. The Forgiven are a team of vampires who have banded together to resist their bloodlust and use their powers to defend humanity. Under the guidance of their mentor, Reizo Koru, the group welcomed their newest member, the neophyte vampire Redblood. The demon Salome attacked former monster hunter Zawadi at her apartment. The attack drew the attention of both Spider-Man and the Forgiven, and working together, they defeated Salome. Redblood then betrayed Reizo by stealing the Lightbender amulet that protected him from the sun. When the Forgiven discovered Reizo had been destroyed, they vowed revenge against Redblood, who in turn fled to the Quench Center and its mysterious founder, Bobby Quench. Elsewhere, the X-Men were alerted to the discovery of exsanguinated mutant body parts. They recruited fellow mutant Jubilee, a former vampire herself, to help crack the case. Basically, we get Jean Grey, Wolverine, Jubilee. They're all dealing with this vampire issue, and the good vampires are starting to turn bad, and it was a very confusing issue for me because apparently this is part of an ongoing. They had it sounds like Spider-Man had an issue, and there must have been a couple other ones that came out before this that led up to this story. So I was behind on what was going on, and I'm gonna have to go back and figure that out. But I picked this one up because it mainly talked about Jubilee and the vampire sect, and I didn't notice the other ones, but Anthony knows more about that.
I'm guessing I didn't read them, but I'm guessing because Marvel has done this where it's like they have their like 3 separate #1 issues leading
Yep.
with a certain team. So you jump in on whatever one attracts you, but then ultimately they all do connect together. But
Yeah, they're all based off like Spider-Man Unforgiven. They're all called under the Unforgiven name state. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to jump back into it. But I did like what I did learn from this. I like the twist with Julie of being a vampire and stuff, and then Jean Grey not being able to use her powers on the vampires in certain parts, and just it was an interesting book. But yeah, very without having those other stories, I was very lost. So I'm gonna have to definitely check those out. But it was fun. I haven't checked out an X-Men thing in a really long time because I'm more into just the individual characters themselves. So, but yeah, Jubilee was always one of my favorites, along with Wolverine. So that's why I picked this one up.
and I think that's part of the sales tactic because they did that with the Man Thing and like Avengers and Spider-Man. I think it was like last year or the year before. And my guess is that they're like, all right, let's tell these. Miss Marvel just had it recently with like Venom, and I think she had one with the X-Men and somebody else where like they tell one-shot issues being like, hey, if you're a Ms. Marvel fan, you're picking this one up. You're interested in X-Men, you're picking this one up. You're jumping into a middle of a story, possibly, but give you enough, a little bit of a taste, and then you realize, well, now I got to get more. But rather than maybe billing them as a 3-issue mini, they might just realize, well, let's just try to get people in for at least one of them, and then try to hook, because
Yeah.
there's probably not like if there's a Venom series that has Ms. Marvel guest star in it, but it's just called Venom, there's probably not. But I, as a Ms. Marvel fan, is probably not just going to pick up that Venom issue. But I see their names together, and that's like, all right, I got to jump over there, and now I'm reading a Venom issue. So I think there might be some kind of just modern day testing with that they're trying to do, of just trying to find the people being like, hey, I haven't read X-Men in a while, I'm going to pick up X-Men. But
And then some of them you pick up and you're fine with just getting individual issues, like the Lazarus Planet. I only bought a couple of them, and each one read themselves well, so you could understand it. But then you get some that like this that you're like, yeah, I got to find out more. So.
Yep. Okay, well, I think that is it for the weekly reviews. I was just double checking the lineup, but I think we covered everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the news. And for everybody watching on the YouTube, they are seeing the magic happen as I press pause and save on the audio podcast, and I hit record again to start a new track so I know when to edit after all this. And then I'm going to jump back into our YouTube window here. And here we go with the news. Let me take a swig for the working man here. All right. Welcome to the news. This is going to be part 3 of my C2E2 2023 recap. And as I went through Artist Alley, spent 2 days in Artist Alley hanging out, mingling with some of the friends down there, meeting new creative people, buying some new stuff. So here is what I am going to show off. I'm going to kick it off with Art Baltazar. Oh yeah, table is the first table that I always hit up at C2E2. And while I was getting ready to hand some money over to Art to buy some new stuff, which includes early releases. I don't know at the time of this is dropping, I'm not sure if some of these are out yet, but Meteor Might issue number 3, Webster the Spider Monkey number 0, because he's been doing some of those if he's got them printed and they're before the next month comes out. He's been just kind of throwing them at the table there so you can get some exclusive releases before they're on the website for artbaltazar.com. But before I was about to hand him some money as I was picking up some books, he handed me an envelope and said, here, I got something for you, sir. And knowing I was going to be at C2E2, instead of mailing it out, it was front loaded with this quick sketch card of the famous cartoonist himself. And this is basically some rewards that were due for the Patreon. He had done a Patreon level and kind of gave out, prints and stuff like that. There's a lot of them here. It was a pretty, heavy packet. I didn't know what was going to be in there. So I'm just going to kind of flip through them here. Just showing all these prints that he kind of gave for some Patreon supporters, just kind of going through some of his characters. He made some that I don't even know who they are. And I don't know if they appeared in some rare things or maybe one panel or something. But you do have some recognizable characters as you go through the list here. But yeah, it was kind of cool just getting the thick packet and then going through and just seeing what the heck was in there and seeing once again some of these I'm just like, I'm not even sure I'm familiar with some of these people. But he's done so many comics over the decades that it's it's hard to keep track. This one, Lunar Lizard, is very familiar if you order from artbaltazar.com, because you're probably going to get a couple copies of that if you're a frequent buyer. But yeah, so it's just kind of cool just getting a whole big stack of prints. That's basically how my C2E2 started out. Another one slipped out of there. But yeah, going through, like I said, there's a lot of the rare hits. Here we go. That character's familiar there. And one of my favorite characters from Meteor Might is Bob the Worm. I was very excited to see Bob. I love Bob. So Rhinoceros Jack. But yeah, there's just tons. And then there we go. Yep, I think I started that on purpose because I started with this Patrick and then the Wolf Boy version of Patrick. But so yeah, that was a big old stack of overdue Patreon prints that were waiting for me. So that was cool to get those. Went over in Artist Alley and they had the creative team who have worked together on Batman as well as Noctera. The first one I met for the very first time, Tony S. Daniel. He's known a lot for his Batman work, but the current series that's out there right now, Noctera. And what was cool about talking to him for quite a while, just kind of talking about art process and things like that. I think we ended up spending like 10 minutes just talking. And during that conversation, he just kind of randomly goes, it's like, oh, you like beer? And I'm like, what? I'm like, it was not a question I was ready to answer. It's like, oh, you drink beer? I'm like, I guess. I'm not going to say, I'm like, well, I don't really drink beer. I mean, I have, but whatever. So I'm just like, oh, yeah, I do, not knowing what was coming next. But he handed me this, the anti-hero India Pale Ale can here, which I cracked open later that evening, but it had a pretty sweet looking design. Now, I did see that a lot of the people around Artist Alley had these. I don't know if this is something that's just like this was a promotion for the booth or a sponsor. Maybe they had it all stocked in the green room or something. But next thing I knew, I'm sitting here talking to an excellent artist, and he hands me a can of beer. So I'm like, all right, I'll take it. Can's pretty cool, and now I can put it next to my granola bar that writer Christopher Priest gave me a couple years ago at Wizard World. So yeah, I've got two items now that food items that some comic creators have handed off to me. So yeah, Tony S. Daniel was awesome. And the next thing I'm about to show off was a long time coming. Since 2014, I've been trying to meet this person. Witches #1 came out. Witches is an awesome horror book that short-lived in the run. They keep kind of teasing about wanting to come back. We got a one-shot here. I think there was a story in one of the Image anniversary specials. But Scott Snyder is a co-creator on Witches, and while I've only read just a minimal amount of his Batman run, but I've read a lot of his creator-owned series, Noctera being one of those. Also, We Have Demons, which I had Greg Capullo sign last year. But I got a double signature here on this book because last year I met Jock, who is the co-creator of Witches as well. But Scott Snyder, I've been trying to get into his line at an appropriate time for almost 10 years. He's one of those just highly in demand creators. And anytime that I would try to get into his line, I was either too late or they capped it off, or I knew that it conflicted with a photo op or a panel. And so many times it just, you just kept going to the back of the pile. So I've been taking this book with me to every convention that Scott Snyder has been showing up at for almost 10 years now. And pretty much it was the last book that I never got signed when I'd return home. And knowing that he's going to be at C2E2 this year, like last year, he was on a schedule, but then he had to cancel because he forgot he had a vacation planned that was planned long in advance. And I'm like, all right, another year I missed out on Scott Snyder. But this year I was determined there was going to be an after convention event that Scott was going to have with his artist friends. And I was about to buy a ticket to that, but I knew he had some regular signings throughout the convention. So at one of the signings at Saturday night, I went there, probably about a half hour before it was scheduled to start, just to kind of test the line. And I saw people lined up, but I looked at it. I'm like, that is an awesome spot in the line. I am jumping in. He was going to be there for 2 hours for that particular session. And maybe they capped it off like 10 or 12 people after me. But what was interesting is I'm standing there being like, okay, I'm 100% getting the autograph now. Knowing basically how the line moves and where I was, I'm like, yep, I'm guaranteed to get it. And the people next to me, it was kind of funny that they were looking at the line just being like, oh, this is a long line. We're going to be here forever. I was looking at it being like, phew, we're only going to be here for 2 hours. That's awesome. This is a great spot in line. So it's just kind of interesting to see the dynamic of like, line waiting and what people are, capable of. But like I said, for 10 years, I've been waiting for this moment. So when I saw that, I'm like, perfect. I only have 2 hours, two more hours out of that decade to wait to finally meet Scott Snyder. And he was awesome. I got to tell him that story. Just told him how much I love this Witches book and just how creepy it is. It's definitely one of those kind of horror books, thanks to Jock's art, obviously, of just how creepy it is for every turn page. I really don't get a lot of horror vibes as I would if I'm watching a movie or a television show or something. But this is one of the rare horror books that really just creeps up on you, and freaks you out. And he added an extra little signature on there saying, "I pledge you." So yeah, that was awesome. Now I got it signed by both Scott and Jock. So once again, long time coming. He was absolutely fantastic. Totally sincere with thanking me for attempting every single year to try to get into that line. So yeah, Scott Snyder, he's awesome. Artist Mindy Lee, I was there for. I think she had a story in one of the Harley Quinn anniversaries or something like that. But I am showing off a awesome print that Mindy Lee has done here. If you go to Mindy Lee's Instagram page or wherever their art pages are, you'll see that they love drawing Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. You look at the feed, there's tons of gorgeous stuff. By the way, I think it's Mindy Lee Doodles. And you look at it, and I was talking with Troy Dungera, and he had commented on this, just being like, okay, what I do is called doodling. What she does is not called doodling. And that's just what, like, this is a doodle tip for her. And it's an awesome. This is, by the way, if you're listening to this on audio, subscribe to us on YouTube, Crimson Cowl Comic Club, because this is the show and tell. But this is Harley and Ivy reimagined as mermaids, and it's just such a beautiful kind of, it's kind of whited out as far as the skins and the background and everything, but it's just vibrant with a lot of blues and pinks, and such a beautiful, adorable print of Harley and Ivy as mermaids. I kind of asked about it, just being like, "This ain't from something, is it? Is maybe I missed a anthology story somewhere?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "I just love them and love mermaids, and why not draw them as mermaids?" And I agreed. So yeah, that was an awesome print to pick up from Mindy Lee.
And in the Harley's multiversity, she had the mermaid Harley. So,
Oh, really?
yep.
I'm trying to think if I picked that one up or not, because I didn't. Yeah, maybe I didn't get that one.
She was obsessed with the mermaid Harley.
I'll have to see it. Maybe Mindy contributed that. I'll have to check that out. Speaking of Harley Quinn, Jenny Frizen, I think I've talked about her many a times, but I bought this awesome Margot Robbie inspired Harley Quinn print from her. So I'm fairly certain this was used as one of her covers. She just, will have a long run of doing covers at many different publishers, whether it's working on Buffy years ago, Red Sonja. She's done Angel for a while, and she's done runs on Wonder Woman and Catwoman, and currently for Harley Quinn. So it's one of those things, just being like, yeah, every cover that she pumps out is well worth the cover price, even if you're not checking out the comic. But then she also does some selective prints on those as well. And yeah, this was just a gorgeous one there. So Jenny Frizen, always doing excellent work. The next person here is a contributor to Franco's book, Dead Man Tells the Spooky Tales. I've gotten some signatures. I showed this one in past editions here, where everyone's kind of lined up, and I would have them sign under their story credit there. And let me just get the card out here. We are looking at Tress Bowling. We can go to TressinaBowlingArt.com. And but yeah, Tressa was right next to Justin Castaneda, who I talked about in one of the editions here, and both of them had contributed to Dead Man Tells the Spooky Tales. Those two are basically like convention table buddies that they've been tabling next to each other for a long, long time. But this was my first interaction with them. But it's fun going back to their stories and Justin's videos when he does recaps of cons and stuff, just because, yeah, they're good friends and hanging out. When I walked past Press's booth, it didn't click right away that, oh, this is one of the people I gotta get the Dead Man book out for. I stopped because I saw this awesome Women of Marvel print that she had. I think it was in a signed, yep, it was a limited run that she was doing. But we had Spider Gwen and America Chavez, we got some Squirrel Girl, we got Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, and Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. So that was just a unique print there that I thought was awesome. And then that's when I stopped, looked at the name, realized, hey, I was supposed to be here anyways. So, but it was kind of cool. Like, I remember this catching my eye, and she must have been, way at the table. So I was just like, all right, I got to come back and make sure to scoop this up so I kept kind of monitoring it as I was hovering around some other booths. But yeah, this was an awesome print. They were super excited. It was awesome talking to them, going through their work and getting the Dead Man book signed. And yeah, so that is TracinaBowlingArt.com. Here is a picture of the card. So yeah, that was that. Oh yeah, I forgot. I also had another item from Tracina because we have some Beetlejuice and Lydia. Ended up being one of those random things where I ended up buying a couple things that were Beetlejuice related just by coincidence. But yep, this one was there too, and I thought that was cool, so I had to pick that up. But so yep, that's also from Tracina. Then I am jumping into the last creator for this edition. I will probably do at least one more part based on what I have to show off yet. C2E2 is just a big convention, huge artist alley, and I didn't have time to visit everybody in the 2 days. So this next person here, I was pretty excited. I didn't recognize the name. I wouldn't have really known the name when I was a kid when I checked out their work. But Tim Jacobus. Tim Jacobus is the illustrator for Goosebumps. I had talked to him for quite a while, and he had illustrated, I think he had said over 120 covers for that original Goosebumps series runs. I think the initial run went for like 60 some, but then they've had all the different spin-offs, and I think they have like the Choose Your Own Goosebumps, or I think Slappy has had a bunch of different like spin-off series, and but basically doing over 120 illustrations. Also, R.L. Stein brung Tim onto the Stuff of Nightmares series. I'm going to take it off here because it's a shiny cover and it's bagged and boarded. But the Stuff of Nightmares book that R.L. Stein did with A.L. Kaplan, there is a variant cover that Tim did, and it was cool to buy a brand new R.L. Stein story with the Goosebumps artist Tim as the cover artist for this variant. It is one of kind of like the shiny covers there. But so yep, it was super cool. Oh yeah, there's the title when I hold on here and see if it shows up. You could sort of see it. It shows up in the glare there. But yeah, anyways, got to talk to Tim for quite a while, talking about how I was the perfect age when those Goosebumps books were coming out, where that was the one thing that had got me excited to read outside of reading comics and Beetle Bailey and Garfield and Archie and all that stuff. And reading Goosebumps books, when I would go get them at the pharmacy, my mom would go one direction to go to what she needed to get from the pharmacy, and I would dart down a specific aisle, turn, find the rack, find the shelf to see if the brand new Goosebumps book was going to be there or not. And it was so cool to do that. And the one thing I wanted to do, it's one of those, the Goosebumps collections. I had definitely had all of those. I've recently looked at all the covers to double check like how much did I read of this series, and I was up in like the 50s being like, yep, I've read every single one of these of the original series. But it's a series that eventually went to the rummage sale or hand me down to some cousins or some neighbor friends. And just recently I went through and found a good deal on eBay, and I'm going to slowly buy and reread the Goosebumps books because I'm like, that was a big part of my childhood. I love that stuff. I'd later get into Tales from the Crypt and Are You Afraid of the Dark, and but Goosebumps was definitely my introduction into horror stuff. And yeah, now there was one item I didn't think I was going to be coming away um, from the table. There were 3 sketches sitting on the table, original sketches that Tim had done. They were all pre-done sketches, and I looked at it. I'm like, whoa, there's original art from the Goosebumps artist. In my mind, I set up a high number, being like, oh, it's probably going to be this much, but hey, if it's at this price range, I think I'm going to pick it up. And I didn't see a sign looking around. I had asked what the price was. My eyes jumped out of my head where I'm like, yep, I will take one of these, sir. And just out of respect for the person, I don't know if they change prices based on where they go and availability. So I'm not going to reveal what the price was on air. But I'm sitting there looking at them. But what was interesting is that there were there was a young girl who was probably the same age I was when I was reading Goosebumps, with her father, who was definitely probably in my age range. And I overheard him. They were right. We were both like side by side. There's no line when you really go up to these kind of tables. So we're kind of side by side, but she was looking at these sketches, and he goes to his daughter saying, "All right, you can pick one of these sketches, you know." And she was all excited. And she's looking around, you know, picking between these three. And she was right there. I wasn't going to be, the 40-year-old guy coming in and be like, "Get out of the way, kid. I'm buying this one." But there were three great ones. There were two really great ones, two of which I wanted. But I had double checked with the father, just saying, I'm like, "Oh, is she getting one of those?" Like, "Oh, yep, she's gonna pick whatever." I'm like, "Okay, I'll let her pick whatever one she wants, and then I'm gonna buy one," because I didn't want some other, 40-year-old person coming in, bumping me out of the way, being like, "Yep, I'll take all three of these. Get out of the way, kid." And so I wanted to secure that I was gonna buy one of these things because I'm like, I don't think I was ever gonna have the chance to own one of these. So she picked out one, and she did not pick the one that was my number one choice. I'm talking about the haunted mask one here. This, and I thought she was going to go for this just because it is a young girl putting on the haunted mask. Um, and she picked I think she picked the Slappy one because the dummy was I think it was Slappy the dummy. Is that the name? I'm I'm trying to remember now. Sometimes I might get it confused with the dummy. Oh, Sid the dummy was from Buffy. So yeah, Slappy was from Goosebumps. Um, but yeah, so I got the one I wanted there. So once she picked hers, then I grabbed this one right away before anyone else came in. Before Dave Scheit came in and picked one up because he's a huge Goosebumps fan. But yep, this is an original sketch here, a replication of what he did. It's not like the original one from the first book from the '90s. But yeah, he just had a pre-made sketch laying there on the table. It just feels kind of crazy to own this, and I'm super excited to hopefully someday get to meet R.L. Stein. He was at C2E2 maybe a year. Yeah, it would have been maybe a year ago. It would have been the 2022 edition. Um, yeah, 2021 edition, I think it was. He was at one of them, but his line was super crazy. He was a Scott Snyder size line. But someday I'm definitely going to have to meet R.L. Stein and have him sign this work of art too. But yep, so Goosebumps, that was a big impression on me for reading growing up as a kid, and now it inspired me to rebuy the series and buy some old beat up copies that were definitely loved and read over and over again, and yep, and we'll see how it holds up reading these younger novels, but I think it'll be fun. So all right. All right, that does it there for the C2E2 Part 3 wrap up. I will probably have one more edition on our next available episode. Speaking of next available episodes, we won't have one the next week here. It is Free Comic Book Day for May 6th, I believe, is the day it lands on. Yes, May 6th is Free Comic Book Day. For anybody watching this that's not familiar, the publishers will put out specific Free Comic Book Day samples, sometimes full issues, sometimes anthologies, sometimes like reprints, short stories. Basically, a good way to get many different people into reading comic books. You can check it out if your store is one that is hosting Free Comic Book Day. And then always highly suggest checking out other items at the store and help to support the business. Free Comic Book Day is always the busiest retail day for comic book stores if they do honor the Free Comic Book Day releases. And they put a lot of work into it, getting, sometimes have to kind of relay out the store to set up the table and, just get everything organized and set up sales and staff up and just have everybody on hand because they know they're going to have higher traffic. So highly suggest checking out Free Comic Book Day if you've never done it, but then also browse the shelves and look for maybe some of the titles that we've talked about right here on this show. But pick up a pop figure, an action, statue, trading cards, whatever you need to. A lot of fun stuff to be found in a comic book shop. Now, Kirby's got his map all planned out that he's going to do some comic shop hopping and celebrate. It's something I usually end up doing too, getting excited, checking out and just everybody else that's at the stores and just mingling with fellow comic book fans and such. but we won't have a show on Free Comic Book Day because I also will be out and about at a different capacity. I am going to Oh Yeah Comics in beautiful downtown Skokie. And while I would normally visit my local shop, and I already gave them heads up on, I had a pretty good reason why I wasn't going to be showing up at this year's local Free Comic Book Day, because I've been welcomed into the Oh Yeah Comics Free Comic Book Day hangout. I'm going to go down there. Art Baltazar's down there. He's going to be hanging out and signing. You got some local creators as well as Kyle that we just talked about in our last episode. Kyle Fenrick, I believe is how the pronounce the name. But yeah, you got some of the local creators going to be showing up. But there is another reason why I'm going to be there, because it is going to be a kind of a very memorable day, kind of a milestone of my art hobby, because I was asked to make some prints of some art that I did, and I will be selling my art for the very first time exclusively at Oh Yeah Comics. So this is another thing where you are going to be wanting to check out the YouTube version as I show off what I'm about to explain. But last fall I did this. I came up with an idea where I wanted to do some fan art for the one of my favorite characters from Oh Yeah Comics, which is the Gucci Nana. And I wanted to do some fan art, and I thought about it for literal months, being like, all right, what should I do? I want to come up and spend some time doing something. And then I had the idea of like, well, what if there were more Gucci Nanas out there? And it's hard enough to find one Gucci Nana. You have the Gucci Nana research team that's out there, always looking for it. But what if there was other universes that had Gucci Nanas? And what if those Gucci Nanas looked like other characters from the Oh Yeah Comics universe, from Art Baltazar's mind, from Franco's mind? We have Captain Camel and the Space Chicken. We've got a little Cray Baby down there. We got some Patrick the Wolf Boy. Got some Grimace. We have Hot Link. We got Abraham Linkage right there. And hey, look, there's Bob. I just showcased Bob just earlier. Bob even has a Gucci Nana version. And there's Action Cat and Adventure Bug. You got Webster. But what if all those characters, in different universes, look like the Gucci Nana, or they looked like those characters? So I decided to come up with the Into the Gucci verse and just threw that fan art out there. Art Baltazar commented and shared and loved it and said it was brilliant, quote unquote brilliant, which I'm like, okay, that's some high praise there. And then I was asked by the shop manager Joe, and in the presence of Art, that hey, if you want to make prints of that, you can sell it at Oh Yeah Comics. And I'm like, well, that's something that I never really thought would be a possibility. So I went ahead and sat on that information for probably like a half a year, because I'm just like, all right, this ain't something that I do, and never expected to kind of get into that, with my hobby art. But I'm like, all right, finally going to take the plunge. Troy Dungera talked about a printer that he recently used for an upcoming Comic Con appearance in May. It's going to be at the Tidewater Comic Con. And I said, all right, give me the information of your printer. I want to look into this. Him and Matt Rogers helped me guide through the settings and everything and check the quality. And they said, yep, looks good. I'm like, all right, let's print this in 11 by 17. And I'm all right, let's do this. I placed the order. A couple days later, a box of these has showed up, and it was kind of crazy to see that show up. I did record a reaction video to seeing these for the first time. I have to look back at it, but it might be something I tag at the end of this video or release separately. But stay tuned for that, maybe, unless I look weird, and then I won't release it. But yeah, this is a Into the Gucci verse, my first art print ever, and it will be sold exclusively at Oh Yeah Comics in beautiful downtown Skokie, making its debut on Free Comic Book Day 2023. Yeah, so that's going to be kind of nuts. So we'll see if anybody actually wants this, and I'll just be sitting there and be like, all right, maybe they'll think that Art drew it, because I kind of draw in his style, so maybe I can piggyback off of that. But nope, I will be there on hand just in case anybody wants to know why this exists. So there we go, Into the Gucci verse, my first art print. All right, that is going to do it. We have some plugs here as we jump into the end of the show here. CrimsonCowl.com. We have some original web comics there. They're done by David Gloyd and David Gloyd II. So check out CrimsonCowl.com. And literally, as we record this, he is setting up the podcast pages on there to make sure to have all the proper links. So when I say CrimsonCowl.com, you can go there and find all the information for the iTunes and Podomatic and YouTube links related to the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. If you need to email us, you can email us Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com. If you have a future letters page question, something you want us to answer on the show, send it there, or just some general comments, feel free. Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com. We have Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube, which is very heavy with the show and tell. So if you're listening to the audio version, and you're missing out. There's a lot of fun stuff to see, and you can check it out. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. We also do an exclusive YouTube book club series. We're first covering the Hellboy series out of the giant library editions. We have one episode up there. We got a couple in the can, and I think I'm going to probably work on the second one to get that one dropped sometime soon. But Hellboy over on YouTube under Crimson Cowl Comic Club. And then we have the Crimson Cowl, all one word, on Instagram. Subscribe, rate, and review Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. And then Kirby has a spin-off podcast, which is called Under the Cowl of MS. If Kirby wants to kind of give us a little maybe a preview of what just came out or what's to come from Under the Cowl of MS.
I got a couple new videos out there, some unpacking things, a little 8 billion genies special video out there. And we got, I see another package from my wife that bought something that I have no idea what it is that she wants me to do an unpacking on. And speaking of Troy Dungara, I think there's another package on my way from him too. So, and we'll still be doing the audio podcast a couple of weeks at least. So check them out.
All right, subscribe to Under the Cowl of MS wherever you get your podcast, as well as Under the Cowl of MS on YouTube. I have some hobby artist accounts, Anthony Latch, LAATSCH. Follow that on Facebook and Instagram to see some posts there. And then I can officially say this, but if you go to cartoonistbynight.com, you'll find a bunch of links, including Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube. But episode 1 is currently released to the masses. Myself, Troy Dungara, Matt Rogers, and Matt Fife have come together to create Cartoonist by Night, 4 creative friends that are just hanging out and drawing for fun. We have 2 episodes in the can. First episode is all about Oh Yeah Comics and Art and Franco. It is a 2-hour episode. That is the reason why we all met and how we all became friends and why we do what we do. So check out Cartoonist by Night over at YouTube. It's just a video podcast there. I am looking into the options on whether or not I can get that up at Spotify as well as Twitch. I just have to do some research. I'm not familiar with those platforms, but it won't be an audio podcast at all. So check that out, cartoonistbynight.com. And I will reveal that our second episode, which is recorded, is all about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We just kind of come up with a topic kind of, in the moment and don't really plan too far ahead as far as like, all right, let's all vote on this. Someone throws it out. We're like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think will probably be about a 90-minute episode that we recorded. And we're going to do a bunch of kind of specific topic themed episodes whenever we get all 4 of us together. It's not going to be, common for us to be available every single week. So if we get 2 or 3 people, we're going to do some free-for-all episodes in which we won't have a specific topic. Maybe Matt Rogers will be drawing some Happy Astronaut pages. Maybe I'll be working on a random little sketch that I'm doing that I just, didn't have time to finish. And maybe we'll just talk about, what we've been watching or reading. So we do plan to try to come out with as many episodes as we can, as long as we're available. And we're going to do hopefully about a half a year of episodes where it's just us. And then we're going to open it up to some of the guests and some guests of our creative friends and people that we also just want to hang out and watch draw. And that not only with people that have been published for as long as Art and Franco have, but also find some local people and find people that maybe are setting up a table for the very first time. Maybe they're launching their first Kickstarter, and anybody basically. We're excited to kind of expand and just not make it exclusive to everybody from Oh Yeah, and reaching out to Dan Parent, and me being nervous if I should ask Mike Allred or not, because he doesn't normally do that kind of thing. So I'm probably not even going to ask him. But it's things like that, being like, we're not just going to go for people that we talk about here on the show when it comes to that, but some of the people that we come across at like MightyCon and local conventions and stuff too, and especially artist friends of the other three guys that are part of Cartoonist by Night. So we got a lot of fun ideas coming, but go over there and like and subscribe to Crimson, or not that, Cartoonist by Night. You can do the Crimson too. I already covered that. But Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube, but visit cartoonistbynight.com for all of the links. All right. That is going to do it. All of that stuff I just said is also going to be in the end credits if you need all the spelling and figure out where all that stuff is. All right. I need a breath, so I think I'm just going to end the show. This whole time, I've been in cake jail.
I've been enjoying a jug head cheeseburger with a malted Bloody Betty on the side.
Real name unknown, so we'll just go with Patient J for now.
To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Troy.
I'm Matt Rogers.
I'm Matt Fife.
And I'm Anthony Latch, and we are Cartoonist by Night.
We all met online thanks to our shared interest in comics and cartooning.
On our show, we hang out to draw and discuss whatever pop culture topics are on our minds.
We are fully aware that a show like this has never existed before, and we hope we live up to the hype.
So join us at our website, YouTube, and other social media platforms and watch us cartoon by night. The actual show isn't going to be scripted like this was. Oh.